Hello, I am Mike Thornton. I am the Vice President of the SCTE in the UK. I'm here in India to support the developing Indian SCTE society and its aims and objectives as it moves forward into the Indian marketplace, which is one of the most exciting developing marketplaces that there is in the world. The SCTE as a society has an objective of forming a community group of like-minded engineers so that they may share their knowledge, their skills and their aspirations and develop them. This is a sort of universal sort of wish amongst engineers to talk amongst one another so that they may understand how things work. Here in India, the marketplace is really rather exciting in that it is at a much less advanced state in some technical perspectives than it has been elsewhere in Europe, where I'm from. But equally, it means that there are a large range of opportunities for development of really rather exciting services into the marketplace. Particularly the development of broadband services is something which is accelerating very much worldwide. Broadband has moved from being just a rather convenient, nice thing to have into something which is moving much more into an absolutely essential must-have service for people anywhere on the planet. This particularly applies in places which are not so much necessarily in the urban environment, but here in India, as was been mentioned at the opening ceremony a couple of days ago here, in the rural environment, where many people in the rural environment are moving into the cities in order to find work because they cannot get at the work that they want to do. Enabling broadband out into the rural community means that people do not necessarily have to move around in order to do the work they want to do. This is something which has been seen in many, many countries, where the development of broadband as a service is a really big enabler for the development of society. The other aspects of the industry which the SCTE is involved in were traditionally those around cable television and its development, which is still a viable and valuable service, and also in the development of voice telephony. But it is really the broadband which people focus on, and certainly my society does at the moment. Not necessarily is that wireless broadband, wired broadband, it may be wireless broadband, and other forms of delivering that particular service to the end user. And we see that as something which is an international perspective, grows year on year on year on year. The services follow the development of the broadband follows the development of the services. In India here, then, we are spectating with a good deal of pleasure as we watch the SCTE in India develop and grow into what I'm sure is going to be an organisation many times larger than my own, and which is going to have a real influence and purpose here in India to see the development of these services as they come along.
So, if you can just tell us some of the objectives of SCTE in India, what are some of the
The SCTE in India has a number of objectives which are really parallel those of my own society. First of all, to form this community group as I described a little earlier on. But secondly, to enable training facilities to grow and develop, to allow the education of the technical staff involved in generating these wonderful service engines to become yet more accomplished, so the services may become yet more developed. And as such, the SCTE will play a significant, I believe, a very valuable role in raising the education and skill set levels of the engineering folks here in India. This is based upon an initiative which we did start originally in the UK some 20 to 30 years ago in providing training material, because there was a huge gap in the market. It just did not exist in the sense that there was no proper training materials available, no qualifications available. And we are transferring that knowledge over here to the SCTE in India. So the SCTE in India will foster the development of training capabilities across the whole of the subcontinent, and thus will raise the skill levels. And the SCTE India will sit in the middle of that process to allow the education of the technical personnel to develop.
Now, coming back to the broadband, what you mentioned rightly, if you can just briefly talk about some of the opportunities that you see can be possible in India with the help of broadband.
Delivering broadband falls into several different genres. There is the 90% of the population which is largely in the wired areas, cities, major towns, where delivering broadband over a wide infrastructure is a practical thing to do. And the technologies for that are reasonably mature, whether they are within the cable television environment, based upon a number of various standards which can be developed to use the transport using cable systems. And those cable systems may be optical fiber, they may be hybrid fiber and coax, they may be all fiber. There are lots of physical wire technologies that will work there. So for me, the most interesting challenge is how you take broadband services out beyond the end of the wired networks. And there are challenges there which are difficult to meet. There were some papers presented at the opening ceremony regarding how wired broadband may help non-wired broadband to get out into the further reaches, into the smaller hamlets and villages where there is no physical infrastructure to support it. In those places, there are various forms of wireless technology which have significant application to allow those services to penetrate beyond the 90% barrier of the population, beyond the 95%, and even beyond the 99%, so that you can reach out to almost anybody, anywhere you choose to, who has the capability or the need to use broadband services. They're not necessarily expensive, but they do require innovation, and they require significant, occasionally, engineering expertise in order to make them work properly. And that falls back again to the role that my society and the Indian society can play in spreading around the expertise which does exist, knowing how to deploy these services out in the more distant rural communities, which is my personal favourite area to see where services go, because it's within the towns. There's lots of operators, there's lots of hardware, there's lots of cables and so forth. But out in the rural community, they tend to get left behind, and it is something I am particularly keen on seeing develop.